let's get to Senator Bernie Sanders absolutely eviscerating former Starbucks CEO on response to union push. If you know anything about what's going on with Starbucks unionization efforts, you know that I've talked about this a lot, where the corporation, Starbucks, pretty much very openly, like maybe even worse than Amazon, engaged in union busting tactics and practices. And I think that there was a deliberate effort to do this beyond just being anti-union. My speculation is that the reason why they very openly did this wasn't because they were terrified of unionization. Of course they are, but the real reason was because they want to maybe escalate these cases all the way up to the Supreme Court, a 6-3 conservative supermajority Supreme Court, which is not too fond of unions in general, and that they could eviscerate what remains of the minor labor union protections that we do have in this country.
Do you understand that in America, workers have a fundamental right to join a union and collectively bargain to improve wages, benefits, and working conditions? Do you understand that?
I understand, and we respect the right of every partner who wears a green apron, whether they choose to join a union or not.
Cap.
Are you aware that NLRB judges have ruled that Starbucks violated federal labor law over 100 times during the past 18 months, far more than any other corporation in America?
Sir, Starbucks Coffee Company unequivocally, and let me set the tone for this very early on, has not broken the law.
Okay. Are you aware that on March 1st, 2023,
They laughed at him.
an administrative law judge found Starbucks guilty of, quote, egregious and widespread misconduct, end quote, widespread coercive behavior, and showed, quote, a general disregard for the employees' fundamental rights, end quote, in a union organizing campaign that started in Buffalo, New York in 2021. Are you aware of that?
I'm aware that those are allegations, and Congress has created a process that we are following, and we're confident that those.
One of the most ironic things that I will admit here, and I hope no fucking, billionaire CEOs are listening, is that I have a suspicion, a sneaking suspicion, that workplaces that basically have better workplace conditions, not better workplace conditions, but like better benefits packages without the interference of unions, oftentimes have a higher rate of susceptibility to unionization. This is my own personal speculation, because the reality is that Starbucks in and of itself is unironically, in a hyper-capitalist dystopia, one of the better corporations with respect to labor conditions and specifically benefits. It's true. Now, I think they do that to counter unionization efforts, obviously. They don't want to concede on any aspect of it. Those conditions have definitely gotten worse overall through Uber and other applications and whatnot. But with respect to, or relative to the rest of the service industry, Starbucks workers, especially their benefits packages, are pretty fucking fat. Now, I do believe that that is the reason why it creates a viable opportunity for unionization to happen, especially when you are. All right, when you have higher retention, you're going to have a higher unionization rate. When you're not engaging in really, really awful, nefarious workplace standards like built into your profit structure, like Amazon does with churn and constantly fucking firing people after like a couple of years of working in your facilities on purpose. Shit work conditions cause high turnover, which means a new set of unknowing workers, whereas a higher retention means the seasoned workers can gather their thoughts on the matter. Exactly. Especially if they're working side by side with people that have also been there for an extended period of time. Such is the nature of places that have better workplace standards and their susceptibility towards unionization. Didn't Starbucks only offer benefits after locations began unionizing? No, that part is not true. I am not, of course, in any way, shape, or form writing for Starbucks. I am not defending Starbucks. No, Starbucks notoriously, in comparison to other service sector jobs, have always provided a shitload of benefits that extend to paying for your college education, or even in certain instances, I think like your HRT, right? Gender confirmation. Like literally, Starbucks is pretty fucking lived up on that front. Now, I'm sure at a certain point, the reason why they decided to do that was probably because they wanted to avoid unionization. Then why are they union busting so hard? Well, they're union busting because they don't want the control to be taken away from the capital owners. That's the whole point. Unions, in some respects, don't always have to immediately yield better benefits packages. It's just that the level of control is taken away from the hands of capital owners who are working at the behest of shareholders, and a fraction of that control is given to the base of workers. That is terrifying. That is terrifying to the capitalists. That's why companies are always anti-union, especially as your boy Lennon correctly points out. Those good benefits can also be taken away at any time without a contract. Exactly. No contract means no assurances. It's the difference between taking song suggestions and handing over the aux. Yes.
Were you ever informed of or involved in a decision to discipline a worker in any way who is part of a union organizing drive?
I was not.
Have you ever threatened, coerced, or intimidated a worker for supporting a union?
I've had conversations that
Okay. Well, the last one that you're going to answer is on public record. And also, if you answer that yes, that means the first two no's were a lie.
could have been interpreted in a different way than I intended. That's up to the person who received the information that I spoke to him about.
Mr. Schultz, were you informed of or involved in the decision to close all Buffalo area stores in November 2021, just days before area union elections, in order for Starbucks employees to listen to you give a speech on why they should vote against forming a union, a meeting the NLRB has determined was a violation of the law?
I think this is another area.
Yeah, this was Hillary Clinton's potential labor secretary bid. Just remember that. This is why I mentioned, because according to liberals, he was seen as the guy who was the absolute best at workplace protections and workplace, well, not even workplace protection, but mostly just offering fat benefits packages in comparison to the rest of the service sector, which is why Hillary Clinton probably thought that it was awesome. But if you were not a fucking neoliberal demon, you would have recognized that any CEO is going to be the absolute worst person that you could put in a position where they're supposed to be defending labor. But of course she did that because she wanted a fucking CEO to do that. For the record, you can't fire someone for unionizing. That's illegal. You can't threaten someone when they want to unionize. That's illegal. Howard Schultz and Starbucks, under the guidance of Howard Schultz, did all of those things more than 100 times over. You can't also offer benefits to other people that are non-unionized and then show that as a way to stop unionization efforts. These are all tampering with unionization efforts. This is why I think what Starbucks did, and I've been saying this for fucking years now, since this began, the unionization efforts began. The reason why I think Starbucks very openly did these illegal things was because I'm under the suspicion that they want this to go to the Supreme Court so they can basically eviscerate what remains of the tiny amount of power that the NLRB has, what remains of the tiny amount of power that labor has, tiny amount of regulatory control or regulatory help that labor unions get when they're unionizing, especially because a lot of these motherfuckers do it. They do it. There's no, technically it's illegal, but they'll do it regardless.
Under your leadership, Starbucks has repeatedly refused to bargain with any of the 7,000 workers in nearly 300 stores where workers have voted to represent themselves through a union. The first group of workers to win their election have been waiting more than 460 days to reach a first contract. Mr. Schultz, will you commit right now that within 14 days of this hearing, Starbucks will exchange proposals with the union, something it has refused to do for more than 450 days, so that meaningful progress can be made to bargain a first contract in good faith? Will you make that commitment?
Because the arrangement that was made by the union and the NLRB in Buffalo to negotiate one single store at a time, we have met over 85 times for a single store. We've tried to arrange over 350 separate meetings. We've said publicly, and I say it here again, that we believe that face-to-face negotiations is the way to proceed. And the reason I want to make that point is that there have been safety issues in which Starbucks managers have been outed on social media. There are privacy issues. We don't want to do it on Zoom. We are prepared to meet face-to-face on a single store issue.
Will you make a promise to this?
What they're talking about is when Starbucks national headquarters sends in a union buster, because like unions will oftentimes salt places, right? Unions will send a guy with the express purpose of unionizing that workplace. Like you get a job and it's called salting. You get a job and you start talking to people about unionization. It's like a very commonplace practice. The counter to that by corporations is done when they don't really need to do it because like they already have like barely legal captive audience meetings where they make you sit through presentations about how if you unionize, like this place might close, if it's not profitable, things like that. And the reason why I say it's like barely legal is because like the things that they're saying, the things that the hired third-party labor lawyers are saying to the captured audience of workers is basically just, if you unionize, we're going to fire you. Okay. But in a nice way, without like actually saying it, just veiled threats. So that's the reason why you don't really need to send an undercover manager, but they do. And of course, the Starbucks unions and people that wanted to unionize in Starbucks that weren't unionized yet noticed that there was just some like random managers coming in and working and blasted them on the timeline. And that's what he's talking about. He's saying like, there were safety issues for our managers.
This committee that you will exchange proposals with the union so that we can begin to make meaningful progress.
On a single store basis, we will continue to negotiate in good faith. That's what we'll do.
2 minutes over.
Schultz literally just said in his testimony that he can't offer raises and benefits to unionizing employees, which is illegal per NLRB. Dude can't stop criming. Yeah, any and every instance where the company can offer better benefits to people, you can still do that.